You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Welcome back to Shoe Radio, another episode on the books. Matt Priest, are you with me?
I'm with you, brother. What's up, buddy?
Good. I can't see you. You're somewhere far away. I know you're not in your mom's basement, but maybe in your own basement.
I'm in my own basement, but
I'm
like
in my
Our
basement.
Lady Peace, man. You're somewhere out there, my friend.
Oh, wow. That's a throwback. I didn't see
That's
that
an
in
obscure
the
reference there.
That is Thomas!
Hey.
Or is that the Lord from upon high calling out to me? I'm not quite sure. Thomas, how are you?
Good.
Good. You're in your
Doing all right.
your town home on Capitol Hill. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Awesome.
I'm here.
And then I think we're also is Jasmine out there somewhere?
Yes, but lucky for me, I don't have a basement or multiple floors. I'm just in my apartment, but I'm here
In Brooklyn. All right, folks. This is another episode where, because of the coronavirus is impacting our ability to be, socially close to each other, we are distancing for health and safety reasons, just like many of you. And because of that, it's very innovative. We are all beaming into one platform to record this high quality podcast
awesome.
that you have come to expect from us, and we aim to deliver. So we've been doing episodes on the virus's impact on our supply chains, on retailers. We, in many ways, it's like a double whammy on top of the tariffs we've been talking about. At some point, I would love to talk and get really excited about, new product and stuff. We'll get there in the spring, I do believe. But during challenging times is the exact moment when you need to look at your models and your strategies and update everything. We have to take it as a positive that we have a pause. And in the pause, we need to think a little bit more clearly about some key issues our industry will continue to face as we emerge from this. And one of those issues, Matt, is intellectual property.
Yeah, man. I mean, if you think about the prevalence of e-commerce, the growth of e-commerce sales, all the good things that go into buying product online, and in times like we face right now, having the opportunity to get access to product no matter where you are in the world is really important. And I'm super grateful for e-commerce. But the flip side is that e-commerce has opened up a whole world of counterfeit sales. And so what used to be a localized event where you would go to a marketplace in Beijing or in Hong Kong or New York City on Canal Street, and a guy would open up his jacket and show you all his knockoff watches within his trench coat, or he'd open up a blanket and there'd be knockoff kicks or handbags or whatever. Nowadays, all those dudes are online and they're selling to you globally, and the knockoffs are really, really well made. And couple that with platforms like Amazon.com and eBay and the like, and it's just this perfect storm of the movement of goods that steal our intellectual property and rob job creation here in the U.S. And so we've been focused with laser beam. We've been focused like a laser beam on the issue because it is so important to many of our brands, because it just takes away sales. It takes away opportunity. And it oftentimes, Andy, as you know very well, funds an underworld of criminal activity. So we're trying to kind of work with the administration and do a lot of things that we'll talk about to curtail the growth of counterfeit goods.
Yeah. So Thomas on our staff is typically tasked with tracking a lot of this stuff, especially in regards to Congress. Thomas, there seems to be a renewed focus on stopping counterfeit goods, and mainly because, to Matt's point, it's hurting a lot of local businesses in senator states or in members' districts where you have a legitimate business trying to thrive and someone else is either as an imposter posing as that business trying to sell their goods, or is making some knockoff product that mimics their goods in some way, and ultimately hurts that business and it hurts the consumer when they get the good. I mean, let's say they get a pair of knockoff kicks and the kicks aren't up to that quality, and they're out running and they, break their ankle or something like that. That's a legitimate concern that we have to protect consumers as well as the bottom line of brands. So with this kind of renewed focus on Capitol Hill, just give us the lay of the land where things are at and why, I would say the temperature has increased a lot over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that really sparked this is back in 2018, Senate Finance was looking at this issue and they wanted to know what the scope of the problem was. So they asked an independent agency, what's known as the Government Accountability Office, to do a report. So this agency goes out and they do a bunch of test buys on popular e-commerce sites. And they looked at commonly counterfeit goods like cosmetics, travel mugs. They looked at phone chargers. They looked at shoes as well. And what they did is they bought all these goods on popular e-com sites. And out of 47 purchases, 20 came back counterfeit. So once Congress saw that, there was just this mode of, especially in the Senate, we got to do something. This is a much bigger problem than we knew. We obviously knew how big of a problem was back in, even back in like 2016 with Birkenstocks and others who were pulling their products off of Amazon because of this just surge of counterfeit goods. But since 2018, since this report's come out, we've seen a lot of action. The administration is laser focused on this issue. They've released a report which came out in January on the problem of counterfeit goods. And with that, the Department of Homeland Security has made recommendations. There's a number of bills in Congress which we can talk about to really try to focus on this issue. But it's a huge, huge problem, and it's only getting bigger. And one of the things too is we've heard Customs and Border Protection. Last year, the statistic they gave us was with small shipments. You're looking at 1.3 million parcels coming through the U.S. Postal Service every single day from an international mail. So that's a lot of shipments to try to deal with to really get at this problem. So it's a huge problem, and as you said, there's a lot of different initiatives out there to try to tackle it.
Yeah, and I think a lot, when we talk about the heat getting turned up, I think a lot of it is around Amazon, around eBay, as Matt said, these platforms that people know and love, and as they keep growing and people shopping on those platforms, the opportunity to kind of confuse consumers and trick consumers into buying product that isn't actual product is growing. And the concern is that those platforms aren't possibly doing enough to counteract that. So is that where senators and members are coming around to this issue of really looking at those marketplaces in particular?
That's exactly right. I mean, there was a bill introduced in the Senate last week and the House the week before where they're trying to say, these platforms have to implement best practices, and they kind of lay out some things they have to do. And if, they don't do that, there's going to be some liability on the platforms. Right. But really, you're seeing the administration on this is putting a lot of pressure on the platforms. The DHS report, the Department of Homeland Security report that came out, the past few weeks, it outlines a number of things that the administration is going to consider doing, such as civil fines, penalties, injunctive actions against people that are facilitating bringing in counterfeit goods. It's going to try to. One thing that people don't realize is just because you buy something that says fulfilled by the platform, it could still be counterfeit. And so you could still have counterfeit goods sitting in warehouses. You assume, all right, I buy this on Amazon, it says fulfilled by Amazon. It's going to be legitimate, and that's not always the case. And so that's another thing that the administration in this report is saying, we're going to put some additional responsibilities on these warehouses, on these fulfilled by the platform.
Yeah, kind of like they should like be clearing these things as it comes in, not when it goes out, and not fixing it on the back end, right? Because
yes,
it happened to me. You guys all know I love my coffee. That's why we started Kicks Over Coffee. But I ordered some new Cuisinart gold filter. This is how snobby I am. Gold filter coffee filters, and I ordered it on Amazon, and it said it was Cuisinart. And I get it, and it is a complete knockoff. So then I contact Amazon, and I'm like, "This is a complete knockoff. It's so obvious." And they were like, "Well, we will let the buyer talk to you about that and attempt to solve the problem." It's like they're gaming the system. Like I don't need them to have an excuse. So of course the warehouse contacted me and like, "We're sorry, we sent the wrong one. Someone got confused. We'll refund you the money." So obviously they're not going to send me a new one because they don't have Cuisinart. So Amazon just lets them off the hook. I'm still stuck with this crappy filter that I just have to throw away, and then I have to order a whole new one. And it just frustrates me that there's not better controls on these platforms to filter out the stuff at the very front end, much less the back end.
Nice pun. That was nice. Hey, I totally agree. And I think that what has been really surprising about this whole process, particularly as it was launched from the presidential memorandum last year in April, is that someone who has been kind of our arch nemesis on the trade side, Peter Navarro, and an administration that's been focused on increasing costs for American consumers through tariff and trade actions, has actually got this right. And they have been focused, and I think Navarro has been one of the big leads on it. They've been focused on the platform's culpability as it relates to goods, so that, Andy, the situation you just outlined, I think that's happening over and over and over again. And you're astute enough to pick it up, but not everyone is. And the platforms have been kind of washing their hands of it and putting them up in the air, like, it's not our problem, not our fault.
Right.
And we're in the administration, and I think that the city as a whole, DC as a whole, has been focused on, all right, how do the platforms change their ways, and how do we disincentivize the platforms to allow this activity? We co-hosted a briefing on Capitol Hill a number of weeks ago in conjunction with the Congressional Trademark Caucus, as well as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and some other groups. We had the Better Business Bureau there, UPS, Walmart, and we had a packed room on a Friday leading into recess. And so there is a lot of interest from congressional staff on the issue. There's a lot of interest with outside groups because there's so many industries that have been impacted by this. And so I'm encouraged by the fact that we do have momentum on this. And my hope is that with the bills that Thomas outlined, with the bill that we're supporting, the design patent seizure opportunity that authorizes customs to seize product based on design patent infringement, which they currently cannot do under U.S. law, that will kind of create more tools in the toolbox to stem the tide of the growth of e-commerce. And that's when it comes to counterfeits.
That's a really important issue and an important bill because, Matt testified last year before the U.S. Senate, and he brought two shoes as an example. One of them had a logo on it, and it was, and the other one didn't. And that was the one that didn't have a logo was a counterfeit shoe that was able to slip through customs. And that's what a lot of bad actors are doing now is they're shipping labels and tags separately and attaching them in the U.S. And so they are able to evade customs that way because there's this huge loophole that we have in the U.S. where other countries like the EU and Japan and South Korea allow customs there to seize based on design patent infringement. We don't do that here. And so there's this huge loophole that people are taking advantage of. And so what that bill would do is it would close that. It would give these new tools to CBP, would allow them to see something that's obviously a counterfeit based on a design patent infringement.
So you're saying basically someone will make a shoe that looks exactly like a Nike, but not include the swoosh logo on it. They'll ship them separately, and somebody at their home or in a warehouse will then apply the swoosh as it gets into evade customs. That's what you're talking about.
That's exactly right. That's the problem. And, we're seeing a lot of that. And you can
So I should just shut down my operations doing that in my basement right now. I'm literally applying. I'm just kidding. That's wrong? No one told me. The other thing too is that I would be interested in knowing your guys' thoughts on it. But we talked a lot about the ability to ship product direct from from overseas into the U.S. with no duty if it's under $800. So if that's the case where we see more and more vendors on Amazon having their own like little landing page, or maybe they have their own website that's like, a name of a brand with like an extra L or, missing a letter or something like that. So if you mistype it in Google and it pops up, you're on this different platform. But then all of a sudden they can invade customs completely by drop shipping it from somewhere around the world straight into the U.S. Is that a growing issue?
Yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I think it is a growing issue. I mean, this thing is like a leaky dam. People when money's at stake, they can find a way to make money. And I really think, look at LinkedIn. We're all on LinkedIn pushing stuff out. The other day I saw a woman who was selling a knockoff of Kanye's slides, algae foam based slides that have not been introduced yet. And they were complete knockoffs. She was on LinkedIn pushing them out to a broad, most likely a U.S. audience. And within the posting had pictures. You couldn't see Kanye, but had taken pictures from Kanye's own press conference around it. So I forwarded it over to the Yeezy folk because I was like, you got to see this. I mean, people are on LinkedIn, they're on Reddit, they're on Instagram. We've had a seller on Instagram, Andy, as you know, say that they're FDRA certified, as if we certify these sellers. These people will there's no shame when it comes to selling this kind of crap online. And there's so many different ways you can tackle it, but it's almost insurmountable. And I can only imagine what the brand protection people at Jordan and Nike feel like, and Adidas. They have like SWAT teams and intel gatherers, and they work with private investigators. I mean, it takes a lot of money to stop this activity.
But what you guys are basically saying is U.S. Customs has been hamstrung. We're using old, outdated rules. We aren't tough enough on making sure if you're a reseller or something like that, we haven't really been paying too much attention. Like, it feels like everything that we're doing in terms of IP is still like we're living in a physical world, brick and mortar, where you can look at it and tell, when everything's been digitized and now we haven't caught up on the laws and on the proper processes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Yeah, and I think one thing too is there. With everything obviously going on with the coronavirus, it is, taken up, a tremendous amount of energy and resources and focus, and it should. But we saw a lot of momentum on these efforts, before this happened. And I think were that not going on, you would see just a really a huge focus on this in Congress and with the administration right now, because it's such a growing problem. And one thing that would be going on right now is one of the recommendations from the Department of Homeland Security was for a big public partnership campaign a public-private partnership campaign to really raise awareness with consumers so that they know, hey, this is a huge problem. This is a problem on e-commerce sites. It's hard to distinguish, but you need to be careful with what you're buying because it is such a growing problem. It is so prevalent, and people really need to realize just the scope of the problem. So with everything that's going on, it does create an additional challenge with this because we're not able to really have that aggressive push on IP legislation that we should be able to have right now.
Well, and I'll say this, that I asked.
Say it, brother. Say it.
I asked directly the officials from the Department of Homeland Security, who was tasked by the president to really coordinate all these efforts, about how often they're meeting, having been on the inside and knowing that if something's really a priority, the interagency, all the different agencies that are involved in a certain policy initiative are usually gathered pretty regularly to tackle something. And I thought to myself, well, they put this report out and they called on public-private partnership and they publicly call out the platforms. What are they really doing beyond that? And they basically said, look, there are going to be more executive orders. We are meeting very regularly as an interagency. It is a huge priority for this administration. So I expect in the coming weeks and months, there'll be additional enforcement actions, additional presidential proclamations, trying to provide as much authority to the agencies as possible to crack down on this. And I think we're in this weird spot where you have the trade war, you have the coronavirus, and now then you have this IP challenge, and how much we rely, particularly on China. More and more regular day folks are saying, why are we relying so much on China for medicines or for ingredients that go into medicines or other products? And Navarro has been on TV this week saying, we need more made in the USA. So this is going to really propel them to try and push the supply chain, maybe not entirely back to the US, but back to the Western Hemisphere or away from China to countries that we have better relationships with. So I think you're going to see a total reconfiguration of the supply chain based on a variety of different issues. And it'll remain to be seen what that does for the intellectual property of our products and the prevalence of counterfeit goods.
It's been interesting, too, to see how many lobbyists Amazon's been staffing up with the last year because of all this, too. I mean, we see it's inside baseball for us, but to see the number of firms that they're hiring, to see the new jobs they're creating around this, because they know it's coming. And you're talking, dozens of new jobs they're creating here in DC to lobby on these issues and protect their ability to do whatever they want to do and however they want to craft it. So there's definitely a war happening between regulators, between Amazon and platforms, and somewhere, hopefully in the middle, we'll actually see the proper implementation of policy, hopefully.
Yeah, that would be fashionable.
That would be fashionable. And for that, we're going to bring in Jasmine to lighten up the show a little bit. Jasmine, how are you doing?
Good. So, of course, the fashion has slowed down a little bit too because of the coronavirus. But I did find some interesting facts on the internet about shoes. So one of them was U.S. women own on an average 19 pair of shoes, which I'm interested if you guys can tell me from your household. Do you think that's about true or no?
No, we're kind of outliers because we work in the industry, but that's clearly lowballing both myself and Lisa. Okay. So no way. Okay. Add like another digit to that and you might be closer.
What about you, Andy?
I don't know. I'm just not sure.
Okay.
No comment.
As in all things fashion, I do not know. I'm trying not to self-incriminate myself,
What about you, Thomas? Can you say that is on average how much your wife has? About 19 pairs, or is that too low?
I should know, but I don't. That's not.
You just moved. Don't you know when you're like packing stuff up?
He doesn't have access to the closet. He got kicked down. He only got the linen closet.
From the closet.
Right.
Yeah, he got the linen closet. He didn't get the walk-in closet. He got pushed down the hallway.
That's right.
I also seen, I don't know if you guys want to guess, what is the most expensive pair of shoes ever sold? Just give me a number that you think.
25 million.
Oh, no, not even the millions yet.
I was thinking maybe 100,000.
Yeah, $200,000.
A little over $500,000, so 600.
Matt's wanting to throw cash out on shoes, man.
What kind of shoes were they?
Matt, have a knockoff for
What's
you.
the most iconic shoe? Would you guess?
Jordan something.
The ruby red
Dorothy's.
Yeah.
Slippers. Yeah. Smithsonian.
Well, folks, there's no place like home during the coronavirus. No place like home. There's always a shoe giant somewhere. My goodness.
Oh my gosh.
I just thought those were some interesting fashionable facts.
I thought she was just going to lead in with slippers. We need a whole session on just slippers at this point. Everybody's out at home, or barefoot. So I don't know.
No, but that's too cold.
All right. Well, folks, hope you've enjoyed kind of our roundtable on intellectual property issues as we see them. Lots of things happening in DC. Please stay plugged in. Thomas does a great job of sending out a newsletter at least twice a month on things happening policy-wise. We also have new, I don't know if we call them brochures or what it is, policy point papers that we put out on
policy
specific
insights.
Issues. Policy insights. So it's usually a 1 or 2 pager on IP issues or on tax issues or something like that. You can go to FDRA.org and log into our Intel Center and pull those out. If you are a member, if you're not a member, what are you doing? You should be emailing me to sign up for membership to see these policy papers. But folks, as always, please go to shoeinshow.com to check out our full catalog. We have over 200 episodes now, especially relevant if you're at home and quarantined and you've got nothing else to do except listen to Shoe and Show. We love it. But on behalf of Jasmine, Thomas, Matt, and myself, thank you for listening. Until next time, Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit FDRA.org.